Good morning. This is Ed in San Diego. So today is Thursday, uh, November 13. Boy, month's going by. Thanksgiving's coming up. Holiday season is upon us, as is Black Friday shopping and Cyber Monday shopping more. Today's broadcast, which will start at the top of the hour, features Ron Cooper, thecooperculture.com. Go check it out. He's a good guy, straight shooter. So this show is about Turning Point, the organization founded by the late Charlie Kirk, a tragic shooting. It's pretty stupid. So it's tragic and it is a backlash. So this show is not political, but of course, people in business are impacted by what's going on all around them. So we're going to get into this. This is about free speech, non-violent. Remember Martin Luther King from the history books, from the TV films? Non-violent. That's what made Martin Luther King great. In those times, that was during the 60s, long time ago. Non-violent. And it worked. A lot of people were upset because their background, their culture was opposite. And but most people, most Americans, were nonviolent and learned from Martin Luther King's speeches, particularly the one on the at the Washington Monument. Oh, boy, that was powerful. Nonviolent. The people who went against Turning Point were not that quality of people. This is tragic. The show is not political, but it's about what's going on in the country right now, and perhaps some things that can be done to help fix it. We just saw in the elections, it was about the shutdown, the government shutdown. It, there are some other things as well, and it backfired on the people who wanted to block things from moving in whatever direction they were going to move. Nothing moved. This caused a ripple effect that impacted my business. Now, I'm in the PR business, so I help businesses and people communicate a message. Well, that was the wrong message from my view, in the wrong way at the wrong time. I have a proposal, and I think my special guest, Ron Cooper, has his own proposal, and I'm very happy to have him as a customer and as a co-manager of this series that he and I are doing about training staff, training executives to grow and be better and deal with the changing workforce. Workforce is definitely changing. The role of AI, whether it's a ChatGPT or Gemini or Meta, it's a new world, and we have to understand it and be ready for it. Non-violent. Remember, the show is not political. It's business to business. But everything going on out there right now is political. And guess what? It's impacting business. It's impacting my business. And that's why I'm dedicating this time to our very special guest, Ron Cooper. We'll be right back. Well, as a matter of fact, I think he's here in the studio. So I'm going to admit him right now. Stand by. Okay. We're going to begin the program momentarily. We're awaiting the arrival of Ron Cooper into the studio. And here he is. Hello, Ron.
Hey, good morning, Ed. How you doing, buddy?
Good. You are live on Global TV right now. I was just doing a brief introduction to this show, all about Turning Point and the nonviolent way it was begun and the nonviolent way it's obviously growing faster than ever before now. The tragic events, the shooting is just stupid. That person's crazy. There's probably more of them out there, so we have to be careful. I was announcing that this show is not political. It's business to business, but boy, there's politics going on everywhere. The recent election, for the wrong reasons at the wrong time, backfired. And the crazies at Berkeley, troublemakers, advertising it in their address and their apparel at the Berkeley campus. It's just a few people with too much leeway. What do you think, Ron?
I'm right there with you, Ed, and I too want to enjoin you by saying it is not my intent to make a political statement. It is not my intent to try to persuade anyone to think a different way ideologically, left, middle, right, wherever you are. I do like to engage in conversation with people. I am the kind of person I have no problem discussing politics, religion. Some people stay away from those topics, but I do like to know what people think, why they think, and so forth. That was a very quick backdrop, Ed, but I'm very concerned about some of the things that are happening throughout our nation that are, I think, intended, and I'm going to say that Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, now Erica Kirk, I think founded that organization with the intent of being very strong in political, or let's say primarily Christian values, which then do tend to translate to political topics. But I think or at least my perspective was about Charlie, is about Erica. She's very open to different ideas we want to discuss civilly. And Ed, in that context, I welcome differing views, but I think we have to keep it in a very peaceful context. We possibly have heard that these protesters are largely peaceful. Well, that may be the 3, 5, 8, whatever percent are not. And what ends up happening is there are those that would like to participate in something that is peaceful, but they might have to go through, come near the protesters. And are they risking themselves to some degree? But yeah, that's just somewhat of a starter of where I am. And then the overall environment, is it a peaceful environment? Yes, it's going to affect business. There are businesses who have left different places because people will not frequent those places because they are concerned for their safety.
Yeah, I agree. So, uh, I have a last name that clearly identifies me and my background. And the big word Judeo-Christian background that I have, and basically everybody has, or almost everybody, is what we're talking about, right?
Yes, exactly.
Right. The backgrounds are similar, the interpretations are different. And of course, I grew up with all this. And in my family, which is a large family, rabbis go back generations. I'm very familiar with differences. In college, I took a Bible course, and I think I was the only one of my faith in that class, and the others were hiding, I guess. But um, if there were any, I don't remember. It's a long time ago. I graduated college in '68, so. Uh, but I aced that class because I knew what the professor, who was a German immigrant, recent at that time, recent German immigrant to the U.S. And he and I got along famously. It was great. And but he always asked me my opinion about whatever the topic was in that class, and it was terrific. So the college, which was a small college in central Massachusetts in the countryside, far away from the anti-war turmoil of the city of Boston and Boston University, which I didn't like. It's not my stuff at that time, nor is it now. But prayer to this day is with me. I'm not a holy roller by any means, but I'd be lost without the man upstairs. And I think other people are too, but they've been shy to talk about that. So I think the turning point strength is openness about that particular thing that I was just talking about. That's the root. And I think it's evident. Look what's happening. Berkeley welcomed them. Berkeley's known for his liberalism, but it's also known equally for free speech, not violence. That's a bad no-no.
Yep, totally agree, Ed. And in the context of Judeo-Christian, I think this conversation right here represents that forum. And I'm very open to different ideas. But I do think, as you alluded, Ed, I think there are a lot of people who are looking for something greater, a greater good. I'll put it in that term. And I do believe there is a peace that many of us have. We're settled because of the foundation on which we base ourselves is very sound. Day to day, yeah, we're not happy today because of different things, but yet foundationally, the joy of our life, we know we're founded on principles that are lasting. And so I think there are a lot of people whose lives are not in that perspective. I do believe Turning Point USA offers that perspective. I don't think, Ed, either you or I would attempt to force anything on anyone, but we do want to offer a perspective based on our personal lives. And what we have learned from our personal lives is the foundational piece. We have fulfillment, is another word I use frequently, that yes, I am totally settled in whatever I encounter in my life, whatever challenges and so forth. I believe when I surround myself with people like you, Ed, and others who share values, you could help me think into, because I am not the person who has necessarily the total perspective and ideas on any situation I'm facing. But as we surround ourselves with those positive thinking people, we will overcome whatever life challenges we're experiencing. And so, in the context of Berkeley and the Turning Point USA, I totally support free speech. You certainly have the right to protest, but you go beyond what you have the right to do if you endanger my life, because I do want to participate with those who share my values. Yes, I am interested in learning about protesters, why they're there, what they think about, and so forth. But I am not there for the sake of seeking any type of retribution. And Ed, that's a topic we've discussed in the past, and I'm going to continue to discuss. But I do think that we need to learn how to work with people such that we don't anger them, but then a personal a standpoint and values is, even if we are angered, will that take us to the point of seeking retribution? And my hope is we would not get to that point. But I think if, as we choose to surround ourselves with rational thinking people, we'll be able to avoid that. Ed, I'm on a little bit of a diatribe, and I don't mean to dominate, but that's a lot of what I'm about, and I'm guessing we may share similar values.
So I believe that the organization, I pray, think about it, and I hope, you know, again, I'm not a holy roller. It's just that I believe that what's been missing in the education system, public, I don't know about private, but public, is teaching how America works in the schools. And I've never seen that done. And like in a way of the Paul Revere, why did Paul Revere ride through the streets of Boston and in the countryside saying the British are coming, the British are coming? Well, there's like an alarm bell. They didn't have internet at the time, never mind telephones. And then what led to the Boston Tea Party? I'm from Boston originally, so I'm steeped in all this stuff. And how does why did the founders, these great men from the past, there must have been some women there too, but they didn't promote them. But separation of powers in the Constitution, I think it's a good idea. What do you think?
No, I'm right there with you, Ed, and I think there are some who have a mistaken idea of the separation of church and state, and that does not, from my reading of history, the founding doctrine and the founders of our United States, simply meant that government does not have the right to dictate how we choose to worship. And so that separation of church and state does exist, but if for those of us whose values are based on biblical principles, we carry those biblical principles wherever we go into business, and if we're in an elected position, those form the foundation of our values. And Ed, that's what we're like, and that's who we are. And as you said, I'm not a Bible thumper. I'm not a holy roller. I'm not going to try to force my values on you. But if you see anything positive about me, my life, how can I sustain and get through whatever life encounter I have, I'll tell you what it is that brings me through that. And it is my Judeo-Christian values. And quite honestly, it's my basis of my values based on Scripture. And so that's it. If you're interested in learning more, I would be happy to share that with you, but I'm not here to force you to believe any particular way. But my foundational values are based in Scripture, and I won't hesitate to tell someone that. But if you're not interested, then I'm not going to try to force it on you. But Ed, that's a lot of where I am in our the Boston Tea Party and so forth. There are the freedoms that people sought in the United States of America started separating from England because we wanted to be a separate nation to worship the way we chose. And it's, of course, goes beyond that point, but it's the freedom to do what we choose to do. And so I believe a lot of that freedom is based on our spiritual values.
So growing up, there was this old TV show called The Waltons, and it's nothing to do with the founders of Walmart, but 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 that was their name on the TV show. And there was this big family in rural, wherever, Appalachia, I guess. Um, and the father uh, and John Boy was his older son, and then there were smaller kids. Lessons. Every show was like a lesson in dealing with a situation. And the father was always right, but and the mother was right there. I forget her name, um, but she always had the apron on, taking care of this gangle of kids.
Mhm.
And there were lessons about America and about courtesy and problem solving, and you now it's fancy word, empathy, but but understanding what you don't do and what you do, or what you should do. All these lessons. That's what we need now. And if Turning Point can get into all that with a TV show that's well scripted, and explains that kind of stuff without preaching, but in some kind of storytelling way, I think it'll be a huge hit.
Oh, I'm right there with you. And Vice President J.D. Vance has advocated we growing our families. And we are at a population rate right now where we do not have a sustainable population. Our United States population, if it continues with the birth rate that we have right now, is going to decrease. And one of those reasons, it seems, there are some women who think that the importance of being a mother is not as important as having a corporate job. And I can't be a corporate lady if I am producing children, which would keep me in the house. And so there are those, and I'm not here to decry anyone, but there are those who feel that raising a family, being a mother at home, is not nearly as important as having a corporate position with whatever title. And so I am very aware of the term affordability, which has drove a lot of the most current election, that affordability, and many people cannot afford to be where they are without being a dual income family, both mom and dad working. And I do appreciate that. But on the other hand, I would say that yes, to live where you live, to have the vehicles, to have the material goods you have, perhaps you have put yourself in a position where it does take two incomes. And if you only had one income, you wouldn't be able to have the size house, the number of vehicles, or whatever. And I do appreciate that. And so, Ed, all of that is put together, whereas in the Waltons, perhaps life was a little simpler then. However, people may define simpler. And I'm right on board with you that a lot of those episodes were, well, that's the way we conduct our family. That's how we get along with each other. We eat together. We talk with each other. We pray together, those type things. And some of those things are of the past and we no longer do. I think we're in a swing back toward those type of family values. And I think that's a lot of what Turning Point USA represents. And there's some protesters who are saying that, well, it's something to the effect, and I don't want to try to say that I represent anything that the protesters represent, but there's something to the effect that we don't believe what Turning Point USA believes, to which I would say, all right, that's fine, but don't try to keep me from participating in what everything Turning Point USA represents.
Yeah. Um, so can't, well, first of all, in my view, protecting Americans, protecting people is fundamental. Doesn't matter. Fundamental. It's like um, back in the Depression, President Roosevelt, he did some things which are crazy, but some things that were apparently necessary, and they worked. One of his speeches was the Four Freedoms or something like that. I think it's right when World War II, after Pearl Harbor. Freedom of expression, freedom from fear of political fear, and something else. I don't know. I don't remember right now. But if you remember, I welcome that guidance. But um, we need that. We need somebody to say that, whether it's a TV actor, screenwriter, or or a political leader. Somebody's got to get out there and be the megaphone, public, and
And
say
I agree
to
with
these
that.
old-fashioned things. It's okay to bring the old stuff forward and repurpose it, rephrase it, reskill it, and get that message out.
And I'm right there with you. There are some people who I have heard respond to what you just said is, well, I don't want to revert to living in the 1950s. We need to be progressive. To where I would say, yes, we certainly, technology advances and we need to move forward. But I do believe, Ed, there are values that are foundational and never change. And I think some of the things you just alluded to are just that. What are some of the values that are unchangeable? We need to just readdress what some of those values are. And I do believe the proper role for government is to protect you, me, and so forth, but not to dictate how I conduct my life. And so, in the context of abortion, one of the very popular topics right now, there are people who would say that the government has no right over my body, therefore I can. And so we have differing opinions of abortion, but then we also have differing opinions of whether the government has the right to dictate medication I take and so forth. And so there are those foundational values, Ed, and I'm aligned with you. And yes, we're of a generation. I graduated from college 2 years after you did. So, but we share the same boomer generation, which largely has the same value set. And so we do believe that there are some of those foundational values that we need to return to and emphasize those foundational values. Some people would choose to live by those values, while some people would say, that's not for me, and I'm moving on to something very different. But Ed, I think you and I largely agree that we need to continue to emphasize those foundational values, which I think Turning Point USA represents. And we, those of us who agree with those foundational values, need to live those values and just let's say make them available to others and just say, well, these are the principles on which I live. And we may find some other people who um, admire the way we live and maybe are saying, well, yeah, Ed, after listening to you, watching you over a period of time, you do seem to have the foundational values and the foundational principles of just being very settled in your life, whereas I am unsettled. And so that I think it's going to take some time to return to those values.
Yeah. Um, I had an interesting conversation. I think you've met my friend and client, Philip Berry.
Yes.
Yeah. So he and I met in 1999 in Paris. I produced a live conference, and he at the time was global HR VP for Colgate-Palmolive Corporation with an office in Paris. And one of the expat wives in Paris, that could be a TV show, the real expat live story. But Anyway, I had a team around me when I was producing those live meetings, particularly in Paris, and they're all wives of expats. And they're women, and they network. It's in their DNA
Right.
of sharing idea. Talk about this and do that, and everybody knew everybody else was connected, and so this lady says, Ed, you need me and some of my girlfriends here. We're plugged in to who is where and what, and we'll build your faculty. And one of the guys, you got to meet him, great guy, Philip Berry. And another one was this other lady who happened to be in that circle. She was the Microsoft VP for something or other. I think it was Comp and Ben, based in Paris. And they both came and spoke at this meeting that I put on. This is 1999, and at the Le Méridien Hotel. Fabulous event. To this day, Philip Berry and I are still friends, and he's a paying client to this day. It's a long time. And just yesterday, we had a conversation about introducing AI into our conversations. So he's really far advanced, more than me. And he says, well, listen, you have to listen. I'm going to tell you some things here. Take notes. Okay. So he was wearing these special glasses from Meta, M-E-T-A, Facebook. And he was talking to me through not a phone, but through the glasses. And at the same time, he was looking at a screen in ChatGPT on one side, and another screen on what's called Gemini, which is the Google AI thing. And we were exchanging ideas and playing word games about how to call our new TV series that we're building, which is not announced yet, by the way, but it will be. Um, Using names that are new sounding and leading rather than old words about old things. So why not take the old things, which are still valid, like religion and prayer and respect and nonviolence, and give it new words? And so we were playing with all those things and asking AI. We got a long list of stuff. Fascinating. So something like that applied to whether it's Turning Point or maybe some other group will come up with a name and join the party, uh, copy what Turning Point's trying to do with younger people, but from perhaps another view, not Antifa. I'm sorry, I couldn't even say that. Those people are crazy, but and dangerous. Um, this show is not political, but it's about common sense, and business is common sense. Because if you can't make a profit, it's common sense. People aren't going to keep you around. So how do we talk to people out there today? I thought of the idea of the old Walton's TV show, just explaining things in a way that appealed to that generation at the time, and I was one of them. So that's why I love it. There's a bar that opened down here in the Gaslamp district, tourist district, called Goodnight John Boy. And that was the kid's name on the TV show. And it
Yeah.
turns to be a yuppie, not a yuppie, a Gen Z. I'm sorry, I'm telling my age, but a Gen Z hangout. And so there's these guys who got together and they formed a club. I forget what it's called, a membership. And it gets you a pass into a series of events held at this bar and some others around town here in San Diego, in downtown San Diego. And I haven't been there yet, but I follow them on the website and see what's going on. And so, Joanne and I are senior. We're not going to go out at night drinking. uh, but that generation does, and they do it. It's a very successful enterprise. Good night, John Boy. Who would go to a bar with that name? But it's the thematic that we're talking about of it's good. It's a bar, but it's a good thing.
No, I'm right there with you. And I think one of the particularly good things about artificial intelligence is, and Marty and I use Chat GPT in somewhat of a very familiar venue, but I will speak into it the way I speak, those of the boomer generation, and I'll ask ChatGPT, translate this into today's language. And okay, so John Boy, yep, that's what are some things that would appeal to today's language? And of course, Ed, you and I would ask you frequently, Ed, who do you know that I need to know that share the same values I can learn from? And you and I are not threatened by each other. We'll share information and so forth. And so, whatever we can do, it's a part of our mindset, our values. We'll just help advance each other. You're not a threat to me, and I'm not a threat to you, and so forth. There are others, even if in the Gen Zs, who would respect our time in life, and we have wisdom we can pass on to them. Again, I'll mention that I am an advocate of reverse mentoring. Certainly, the Gen Zs know artificial intelligence, current technology better than I do. We can learn from each other. And so, as we choose to share with each other that, and in the context of we're not threatened by each other, we'll share information that that to me is a part of what I emphasize in teamwork. That as we find those who share values, we function as a team. And we know that as we share those values, that's part of the commonality we have. That Ed, you and I can get along well with each other. We'll find others who get along well with us. There are many that are in your group, your TV group, the Philip Berries and others that my values are very askew of some of the other values, but yet we get along extremely well because we find more in common than we have in any differences we have. We're seeking to identify what we have in common, how we can benefit each other. But again, a bit of a diatribe, Ed, that as we choose to engage in artificial intelligence, as we choose to look for the positive in each other, we will advance each other. That's the whole purpose of teamwork, how we get along with each other. Again, in the context of Berkeley, the protesters, and so forth, that by and everything I think I know about Berkeley and what happened has to do with television and the way it was videotaped and how I saw it. So I did not participate. I want to make sure our listeners know that. But I know what I think I know based on what the media has presented, and so I know that may not be the total view, but at least that's how it was portrayed with some. And so, with all that having been said, it's a matter of wanting to share with each other and being a part of a very cohesive team. And even though we may be very different in some aspects, we can still be a very effective team, Ed. And that's those are the kind of people I'm looking for.
Amen. And so just before I started this broadcast earlier, maybe 40 minutes ago or so, um, I Googled and I asked Google about the Turning Point and about the Berkeley event. And what I got back was that it was a very small group, but intent on violence and disruption. not asking questions, just showing off, wearing ugly paraphernalia and, creating tension on purpose,
Mhm.
They know how to do that. They took lessons from enemies of the US.
Yes, and it
There's
has
no
been
question
reported.
about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has been reported, and I don't know the facts, that it is possible that some number of the protesters, maybe at the nucleus of those who were at Berkeley, are not a part of California. They're not residents of California. They may be agitators from outside
No,
who are
there were a couple of arrests. Some, Berkeley's a big place and it's a very expensive school to go to.
yes.
And yet there are a couple of people arrested from making terrible noise to purposely disrupt the beginning of that event,
Hmm.
the beginning of it. And the cops were ready. They were already there. And
And
and all the other people were already inside. And
yes.
these people were not inside.
And there, I had heard reports, again, this is the way the news was reported that I had seen, that yes, there were people inside, but there were people outside who wanted to go inside that felt threatened to
Right.
go through what was seen
Right.
as
Yeah.
somewhat of a gauntlet they would have had to pass through.
Late
And they're not,
arrivals.
yes, late arrivals.
Yeah.
And
The
so,
people, most of the people were already seated peacefully inside.
yep. And so there are those people, the late arrivals, who felt that, nope, I don't feel safe passing through this. They are perhaps professional agitators, whatever, but these are people who are bent on creating a disturbance. And they are there seeming to want to create violence, or at least they want me to be concerned enough that I am not going to make any attempt to pass through this gauntlet and maybe put myself in any sort of danger. And
Right.
so that was their mindset, it appears.
Yeah. Well, I am very thankful to have you, Ron Cooper, and the Cooper culture on this program. It broadens the audience for sure, but also grows it exponentially in a positive way, in my view.
No, thank you, Ed. And one of the things I want to do is I do, and we represent respecting other people's views. Now, we can carry it too far in another person's view if they were to carry into something unlawful or something that's going to harm somebody else. I respect other people's views, and I do want to discuss with others what their perspectives are, values, and so forth in a peaceful way to where we can learn from each other. Now, should a person have a mindset that, Ed, I'm here to keep you from doing something and I'll try to achieve that means through any end, and then I have a problem with that. And Ed, I'm not the kind of person who's going to excuse that kind of behavior, but I will do whatever I can to try to keep peace. But I'm the kind of person, I'm sure you are the same way with Joanne, you're Joanne, that I'm going to be very vigilant. I'm not paranoid, but I'm going to be very vigilant of the surroundings. And I don't want to take my Marty, your Joanne, in an environment where they could be endangered. So I want to be very vigilant of that, with the hope that we can be a very positive influence and inspiration to others while respecting their views. But that's a lot of what I represent, and I feel you do as well, Ed.
Absolutely. Thanks for being on this program. This will be seen around the world.
Great. Ed, as always, I do appreciate everything you represent and the fact that you've got a very vast audience. And always, let's get together. Let's share each other's views, even if we're not totally aligned with those views. But let's do share and learn each other's perspectives, after which we go to lunch, wherever we go, but we will very amicably and peacefully maintain a friendship.
I love it. Thank you, sir. All
Thank
right.
you, Ed.
Have a good day.
You too.
Bye-bye. Thank you.